and letting people in.
All right, so we're off. We're off, are we?
Give us a moment, and as we get into it.
Yes.
And there we go. We are live.
We are live. We are live. Good evening, everybody, from Craftworks Distillery in beautiful Capity, New South Wales. My name is Craig, or Crafty, as I'm known, for those that don't know me. Yeah, Craftworks Distillery is our little distillery. And what we're doing is Australian craft distillers shooting the shit. So it's an idea that craft distillers would talk to other craft distillers and basically just shoot the shit, have different sort of conversations, and give people a bit of an insight into how we think, how we communicate, and how we interact. But we've taken it one stage further because we thought, well, hang on a sec, what about the people that are involved in us in putting spirits into bottles? And there's a lot of people behind the scenes who are involved in that. You have cooperers, you have maltsters, you have designers. We work on design on bottles. We have water suppliers, yeast suppliers. The list goes on and on. Winemakers, brewers. So over the course of the series, and this is episode 3, we're going to be interviewing those people as well, which is super exciting. We're looking forward to it. So tonight we have a very special person. This person is a good friend of mine, a mentor of mine, and he is involved in wood extensively. So we're going to be talking tonight to Mr. Andrew Young from YN Oak. And Andrew is a master cooperer. So his bag is wood and all things wood. So Andrew, we'll put Andrew on now. I'm going to ask Andrew the first and most important question. Mate, what are you drinking?
Well, tonight I thought I'd rip out a real beauty. It's one of the original ones from Lark that I was involved in when Bill first came to see me. So tonight I'm on the gas. My gas tonight is a Lark, and I'm loving it. Loving it.
Very, very nice, very nice. And we also have Luke, local nerd. Luke is a whiskey drinker, IT support. Luke, what's in your glass, mate?
I haven't deviated from last chat. I'm on the Starwood Fortis, almost done.
Right,
almost
nice.
Killed that bottle. I may finish it tonight. You never know how we go.
Yeah, all right. And then we've also got a good friend of mine, very much part of the Craftworks story, and that's Mr. Todd Pointer, or the Todd. So what's the Todd drinking tonight?
I'm actually breaking our rules tonight, and I'm drinking Vatman, the return of whatever we called it. The return of Vatman, just when you thought it was safe to get back into spirits.
So Todd's breaking the rules. The idea of the show.
It's our week, so I'm allowed to.
Yeah. It's our week because we launched our first single malt, so it was a big deal. But yeah, basically what we want is everyone to be drinking someone else's spirit and talking a little bit about it. So we'll let you off tonight, Todd. We'll do it once.
Let's say half of it is Riverborn. Does that make any difference?
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's true.
I'm drinking the Riverborn half.
Yeah, drink the Riverborn half. All right. So, well, I'm drinking last weekend. We were down at Corowa Distillery and with Dean Druce and a number of other Australian craft distillers having a bit of a blowout, and it was a really good time. And so I discovered Quick's Courage, which is Pedro Jimenez cask. And so I picked myself up a bottle, and that's what I'm going to be drinking tonight. So, guys, let's kick it off. Andrew, let's go back to you, mate.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been working with wood? Now, not specifically whiskey, but wood in general.
Okay, well, it really kicked off for me in 1976, 1st of November 1976, where I was lucky enough to get an apprenticeship at Penfold. So you could say from then that's when it all started.
Right. Okay. And what was the attraction to get into being a Cooper?
Well, when you're a young lad, you're a bit wild and you want to do what you want to do. And luckily enough for me, for once in my life, I listened to my father, and he said, get yourself a trade, lad, or, something decent. And I was never interested in vineyard as such, but I had an opportunity to go into the Cooper shop every time Dad delivered grapes to Penfolds. So I went and annoyed the old Cooper, and eventually, out of the blue, after annoying him so much, he threw his hammer and drive on the Cooper's desk and said, meet me up in the boss's office tomorrow and bring your father. And we went into the boss's office and signed my life away for 5 years, 5-year apprenticeship back then. And
wow.
One of my mentors, which I'm absolutely so thankful for, and it can never be repeated, of course, is the late, great Max Schubert. So that's when I got into wood, into wine, Penfolds, and did all the hard yards right from scratch.
So when you started, were you on the broom, just sweeping up wood shavings for the first 3 years, or did they throw you straight into it?
But at the same token, that's a very important part, is on the broom. You had to understand every aspect. And what I loved about Penfolds was the opportunities. We had so many opportunities to learn right from the ground up, literally, well, virtually from the broom handle up. And you learned all about management and what wood did to wine and how it's important. And which led, one thing led to another, different size casks, and you learnt, and it's even relevant today, I might add. So I'm going to talk about whiskey now. Yeah. But in the wine game, but it's like I said, I'll repeat myself in the whiskey as well. You can have a tainted cask, and we spend a lot of time sorting out tainted casks. And I must say, it's one of my biggest concerns, even for the whiskey industry in Australia. There are barrels and there are casks, but, and here's the but, it's not always to do on price, because what could be lurking in that secondhand wood, for example, it can be soul destroying. So you could even lose all your spirit through a badly tainted barrel.
Right. From a whiskey maker's standpoint, it's generally accepted that between 60 and 65% of the flavor of a whiskey has come from what barrel has been used, what's been in the barrel previously. So we put a lot of importance on barrels. And one of the areas with barrels that I think is concerning a lot of Australian distillers is supply. Of, there's a lot of new distilleries opening up, and there's a lot less good fortified wood around compared to where there was even 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt.
So what's your take on all that? What do you think's driving that, and what do you see as a way to remedy it? People aren't going to just start drinking ports and sherries and instantaneously you're going to have those barrels, because you just don't have the age on the barrels. So what's your thoughts on it?
Well, you might recall that over 5 years ago, I put something out there with you and a few other guys, and I just mentioned it, that it's not going to last forever. And so what I use the graph analogy, you're going along and you're really going well, and you're getting all these fortifieds. And when your whiskey's mature, what happens when you get to the edge of the cliff and there's no more fortifieds in Australia, or good fortifieds, I might add?
Yeah. And
then what do? Your performance is going to drop off because you don't have the wood. So I put it out there, and we did some crazy things. I told it wouldn't work, can't work, it's never worked before. And so what I basically did, I invented with my guys in the Cooper shop. I got some terrific guys. They all had input. I'll give you an example. I've got Rodney Schultz, 52 years in the trade, 52 years on hand tools.
Wow.
And And I'm an old bugger myself now, and I'm coming up over 45 years in the hand tools. And I got another guy there, a real gun guy, Michael Hoffman. The guy is really good on quality control. I got another fella too, Jeff. So we worked as a team, and we decided, well, we're going to have to do something. And so we invented what we call super cask. And we went against the conventional science, I suppose. We didn't want to do any shortcuts. And Crafty, you know yourself, I've always said you can import barrels into Australia, and that's okay. But deep down, you don't know what you're really buying, and you're trusting the guys that do the importing to do the right thing, and that's okay to a certain extent. But we got these barrels, wine barrels, as we can tell everyone now. And I'll leave it to you, Crafty, to say the results you're getting out of Supercask.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's the Supercast format is something that you and I talked about quite a few years ago, and I was intrigued by it. So I started with 1 or 2 super casks, and then from there, behind me you can see there's quite a few blue rings. So those blue rings, you know that they're super casks.
Yeah.
So from a Craftworks perspective, we use it as a foundation cask to build our whiskies. It's very, very concentrated flavors. So I find super casks quite exciting. And I find they work well with other casks as well. As I said, it's a foundation cask, and you can pull it together with a bourbon cask. You can pull it together with we've done it with PX sherry casks, with even wet fill wine casks has been quite successful. So it's an interesting format, definitely an interesting format. So it's I mean, what can you talk about with supercasts that I haven't talked about?
All right. Well,
on the social media.
Okay. If you ask anyone and everyone in any organisation, doesn't matter their field, everyone will tell you they got trade secrets. We only have a couple of trade secrets on Supercast because, believe it or not, the heavyweights, if you like, have been investigating what we're doing and want to know what we're doing, and it's that part of it we don't share. Look, we're here to help anyone and everyone, from a guy who's got a single cask in his backyard, his little pot still, whatever he wants to do, right up to the multinationals, and we're even doing a project, or still doing a project overseas on an island, and so that's all good fun. But I relate it back to what you guys want to do as an industry. What do you want your casks to do? Now, there's certain things we can do and certain things we can't do. One of the things that really worries me, and I'm going from experience, you hear people, we've bought old wine vats. And I'll give you an indication. The wine industry's got out of wine vats mainly because the wood is old, it's had it. And you cannot revive, I don't care who it is, you cannot revive something that's dead. But the biggest concern is some of these vats are so old that they are prone to taint, they're prone to mold, they're prone to God knows what, and they're expected to hold. And if you want to take the risk on your whiskey, that's up to you. That's totally up to you. But wouldn't it be disappointing to fill a 500 or 500 litre or 2,000 litre vat only to have the whole whiskey go off? I mean, that's like throwing money away. I don't know anyone who wants to throw money away. If you do, throw it my way. But I want the Australian whiskey industry, whether you're big, small, bad, or ugly, I think Australia can stand on its own 2 feet. If you're going to try and replicate what every other country's doing, well, you're only one of the boys. You've jumped on that same bus. I'm saying, no, get off that bus, go your own direction. And Australia makes some bloody fantastic whiskies. There's no doubt about that at all. Why? Well, we're different. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I hope the Australian whiskey industry never ever becomes like the Australian wine industry. Now,
you expand on that?
Well, I can because I lived through it myself, where there was big money came in and it was dog eat dog, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew, and then it fell over, and then it had to pick itself up again.
Yeah.
Now, people might say, well, big deal, so what? But what about the train wrecks along the way? So you don't have to be a big Jim Beam or any of those guys. You guys, everyone likes growth, good steady growth. I know we're the same in the Cooper shop. We're not interested. Absolutely not interested in growth. Everyone brags, we've got great growth. Well, yeah, so do we. But we want the top 1% of the iceberg. In other words, I'm after the Aston Martin end of town, and we'll help anyone out. But I've got good people with me. I've got good, qualified, accredited people who've got trade skills that you wouldn't believe. And you've been in my Cooper shop, mate.
Yeah.
You've made your own barrel.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
So we also run a thing called Cooper for a day, where you can come in for 1 or 2 days, make your own barrel. It's not going to give you accreditation as a Cooper, but we're offering this out to the whiskey industry. And I see Peter Gallotta. He was in my Cooper shop the other day, and he bought a bit of good Anthropocene whiskey there up to the shop the other day. So we try and help. We're here to help this backyard or the multinational. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Look, I think, this is my own personal opinion, it's the relationships we had with the likes of yourselves and Cooperers and Maltsters and everything else, that's our competitive edge. That's, we can get in there and we can have conversations and take them different ways, different creative ways, and make really creative products. And
I think it's sorry to cut you off, but I think it's very important to say this as a Cooper.
Yeah.
Despite my knowledge and what I've been gifted and learnt from various sources, and with Rodney and Michael and all the boys in the shop, every single day, and I'll make this point to everyone, every single day we are learning something new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're learning something new, and you don't come into the coopering industry 5 minutes and know it all. And I can tell you that now. Not all casks are the same.
No.
No?
It's the same in the distillation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't come in and know it all. You're learning all the time. I mean, I've been in distilling for 3 years, and I put myself on a self-imposed apprenticeship. I only just took myself off it. I wouldn't even call myself a distiller. Now I call myself a distiller. And I think holding on to a degree of humility is important. I really do, because it keeps you thirsty, and it keeps you open to other people. They'll want to be around you and talk to you and share their experiences. And it's that sharing that creates that creativity. If
you're not going to share in this industry, I can tell you now, you're doomed and you're going to fail.
Yeah,
and every little distillery, I like the idea. Even a Cooper shop, you have your own unique tricks.
Yeah.
And ours is certainly super cask, and we've had some very big brand names around the world wanting to know what we're doing. And you know yourself, we've even made a few for my favourite car company, who I won't mention. But
a car company, the car goes fast.
Goes bloody fast.
Very fast.
And it's always been my dream. I'm digressing a bit. It's always been my dream to drive this particular car on the Bells Line of Road in Sydney. So that's my challenge.
Okay, let's change the subject a bit. We often get asked by home people are trying to make whiskey at home. So they go, look, I want to have a crack at it. I just want to buy some new make spirit, or I want to actually put some old whiskey in and mix whiskey into barrels. And there's tricks we all know with the barrels. You don't, for one thing, you don't go out there and buy a 2-litre cask that's been varnished or something like that. So what's some of the advice you'd give the guys at home on if they wanted to play around with a barrel at home? What would you recommend?
Okay, first and foremost, I know this sounds crazy, but we'll try and help people through this. Don't go and buy these, I don't know if I can say it, pissant 2-litre, 5-litre.
You just did.
Okay, all right, sorry. Don't go and buy these pissant 2-litre casks. The first thing you do, if you do, here's what you look for. Here's what you look for. If you've got the metal hoops, if they're brass, for example, or anything like, if they're pinned into the barrel, there's something to look out for. Avoid it, because they're relying on the pins to hold the hoops on. Why? 90% of the time, those barrels are wax lined.
Oh,
so here's the deal. So you take your barrel home and you'll read some directions, and it says fill it with water. Wrong. And they'll never say use hot water, because what'll happen to the wax?
It'll melt it.
You got it. So number one, always use cold water. If you have to do that, use cold water. In our case, Michael, for example, looks after our quality control. And I tell you what, not a single barrel leaves my Cooper shop unless it's been tested with wine and put under pressure. And why do we put wine in? Because it helps the staves keep saturated. And I know, and here's the secret to it too. If you produce a barrel in Australia, we try and produce at about 10 to 14% moisture content in the staves, where they're jointed up nice and tight. But we factor in that if they're going to be shipped, especially during, I dare say it, COVID times, we don't want the barrel hanging around on the wharf or in the port or on the semi-trailer. So Crafty, for example, if I'm sending you a barrel in Sydney, I'm sending that barrel ready to go. So bang, you've got your spirit ready and the barrel arrives and within a couple of days, it's full of your spirit. So just be wary of anything like that that's got, pins in hoops and all that sort of stuff. There are barrels and there are barrels, okay?
Yeah.
So, sorry, just to chime in there, what do you do with all that wine after? So you fill the barrel with wine before it goes out.
Yeah.
What do you do with that then?
Well, we grab that wine and if it's 100 litre, we'll fill it with 100 litre of wine, and we'll drain that off. We check it for leaks, and we'll let all the charring absorb. If it's a sherry cask, it's full of sherry. It just absorbs all those beautiful flavours. We check it for leaks. As you know, wine will leak and where water won't, and all that sort of stuff, particularly spirit. And here's something to really remember, Crafty and you guys out there. Spirit, if we're repairing a spirit barrel in Australian heat, so it's a 40-degree day, 8% humidity, which we've had here in the Barossa Valley many, many times, hot northerly winds. If you repair a spirit barrel, you have to have that barrel repaired within a couple of hours or that day. If you go home and don't put the end in or tighten the staves up, you can leave the head out for maybe 24 hours, if that, but spirit's very drawing and it just evaporates and all the staves dry out. So when you get a cask, we will fill it, we'll drain it off, and we'll always leave a little bit of port in there. And that's our contribution to the angels.
Because they take enough.
Yeah, they do. They do. They do. But it's worth the extra care and attention. I'd rather not sell a barrel. If my guys say, hey, look, it doesn't make the grade, it doesn't go. Because it doesn't matter how many years you've had in a trade, you're only as good as your last job.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah, no. Quality's important. So you're exporting barrels.
Yeah.
So that must be challenging because you said up in the islands and that. I mean, that's the climate there. God, that must be really challenging.
We love it. We love it. Do you want to know a little short story on that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So there's a little island, what are we, to the east of Australia, north east of Australia, a few thousand k's away. And they use the word bulla. And I think you know where that is.
Yeah.
And anyway, we had the challenge. They've got 30,000 barrels of rum. And we were tasked, Michael and myself, went over and did a few barrel repairs, and they loved what we did, and we helped them. And I got approached on the sideline and said, look, hey, can we just play with some whiskey? Can we just have some whiskey barrels? So we made up the three barrels for them, hogsheads, and it was all a bit of fun. It was a bit of a joke, and they said it wouldn't work, can't work, and I noted what was happening to the end of the cask, and this is something else for Australian guys to note. When you've got your barrel full, there's a difference between a leak and a wheat. Now, Crafty, you and I have talked this many, many times.
Yeah.
So one of the things is if I see my barrel weeping, you know what? It's bloody Christmas time. I'm overjoyed because that interaction, and hopefully you can get one there, Crafty, and show us. And demonstrate to us.
Yeah, I will shortly. I've just realised I'm chewing through power, so I've got to go find some power.
All right, you go and find some power. But but the whole issue is if you've got a weeping cask, that means that cask is working for you. Okay, a weeping cask. If you've got a leaking cask, hell, that's a different story. That's profit going to the angels. That's profit going on the floor. So, but there are means and ways of fixing a leaking cask if it does happen. You can use brown paper, string, that sort of thing, as I demonstrated to you at Manly that time.
Hang on. I'm still going pear-shaped here. Hold on.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so we've had a question on Facebook come in
Yeah.
from David and Carolyn Taylor.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Saying he's got a 10 export barrel that's just aged new make. He's bottled it, but he'd like to recooper it. Can it be recoopered still wet?
Send it over to us, and we'll get the boys onto it, and we'll give it merry hell, and we'll get it going for him. Just remember, doesn't matter how good the cooperage is, they're never the same. So you just can't keep on using them on and on and on. I'm new to this in some ways. You guys are experts, I'm not, but I'd say your first and second fill, third fill, you're going to see some difference there. But certainly, yes, we can do it. It's like us. When we get older, we wear out, and barrels are no different.
Yeah, I'll comment on that from a distiller's standpoint. Absolutely, a first fill barrel versus a second fill versus a third fill, huge difference. And I know some distillers now that are moving to second fills. It's giving a lighter expression, which is actually suiting the style of whiskey that they want. And then there's other people that just want big, massive flavors. They will use the cask once and that's it. Now, I've got a question for you, Andrew. So one of the things that I'm intrigued about is flavors up and flavors with a barrel. So I'll give you an example. Yep. I've got a barrel, which is an ex-whiskey barrel that had, it was an ex-whiskey barrel that then became a muscat barrel in Australia, used by a winemaker that then got converted it back into a whiskey barrel, smaller format, 100 litres, that I then gave to a brewer friend of mine who made a choc cherry stout, and then I'm going to get it back shortly. What's your take on that? I'm fascinated with beer, and particularly beer flavoring in barrels and just layering all those flavors up. What's your take on that? What do you think would happen?
Oh, look, it's a real good question, and it's a hard one at the same time. There's going to come a time where somewhere in that roundabout, that barrel's going to be exhausted. Yeah. It's going to be like a V8 motor. When it's new, it's going to be hard and strong. It'll be good. And after a while, after about 100,000 miles, you're going to get some piston slaps, worn out, it's buggered.
Someone likes cars. Do you realize someone here likes cars?
Well, sorry, but that's how, that's just me, just my own. But, it's like anything. Everything's lifed. Everything is lifed. And I keep on harping about secondhand barrels. Yeah, look, you can get some good buys out there. But mind you, there's some pretty expensive casks out there that have been, I believe, highly inflated. They're old, but you have to ask yourself, what do you want the cask to do? Yeah. That's the first question. You got to say, well, what do you want to do? Yeah.
Yeah, and just because a barrel is old doesn't necessarily mean it's good.
Absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head there. And I've seen, and from my point of view, I've been honest in this industry, and it's heartbreaking. It's bloody heartbreaking to go and tell people I've just spent. Well, I'll give you an example. Some of them in the Barossa here, hogsheads, old ones, were getting $600 or $700 each. And you have to tell those people that, look, I'm sorry, come to the Cooper shop and we'll show you why. Why? And I know if I was investing in oak, I'd be saying, well, boy, oh boy. And this is the other thing we got to watch too as an industry. I know there's new players coming in, and I'm working. I do a lot of work with AP John, Peter John. Yep. And they import bourbons and all that sort of stuff. I'm not against people importing, but how can you say, for example, you've been around for 10 years and wouldn't you've been in the game 5 minutes? I'd never do that.
So your advice is, for the new players in particular, is be careful, do your research, and know what you're spending your dollars on. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And you can't expect, to be fair to all those guys importing now, they're trying their hardest too. I get that. Yeah. But you can't expect an old stuffed barrel, and they're not all stuffed. I want to make that clear. And all harks back to what you want to make. But there's going to be a point in time where those barrels are worn out and they're finished. But in relation to your actual question before, guys, get out there, play around with flavors, woods and different things. And you know, Crafty, as I told you today, we boxed up something special for you today. And don't forget to organise that transport either.
next week. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So-
just before we
So
move,
guys, we've got another.
Oh.
Sorry, Andrew. We've got another question off Facebook from Daniel Cooper. What's your take on non-oak barrels?
Leak like a bitch.
Non-oak barrels, as in.
Non-oak barrels.
Okay.
are there
okay.
any other interesting wood types that you've
Okay.
tried and used and that?
Yeah.
give it interest?
Okay, guys. Here's the number one rule. I'm going to put my ghoulies on the line now for Australia. Okay. I don't want to see people waste their money. And I'll tell you what we did over 30 years ago in the wine industry, and we did it with the whiskey industry early on. Australian hardwoods, for example, do not waste your time making barrels out of Australian hardwoods. You're going to get something so unpalatable, you won't be able to drink it. So don't even waste your time. Australian hardwoods. Now, having said that, of course, I'm only here saying that because if I was an investor using my own money, and there's an old saying, it's easy. You can do anything with anyone else's money. So I would avoid it. Stick to the known quantities. That's not saying, don't use maple barrels or, loads of other ones. Give it a try. But as far as Australian hardwoods go, you are wasting your time. That's a proven fact.
What about from a porosity standpoint, leaking and things like that? Would you?
Yeah. Well, once again, it's all about the grain and wood type. And I'll give you an example. I was asked, I was pestered to make an Australian hardwood barrel years ago. And I told the guy, the grain, you can have knots, I won't seal, various reasons. And in the end, I stuck to my guns, didn't make it. He got the barrel made elsewhere. And guess what? Within weeks, it was weeping and seeping, and you just couldn't stop it. Then it went from a weep to a leak, and it was disastrous. So I lost a lot. So no, just don't do it. There are some things in life you shouldn't do.
Like waxing barrels.
Yep. Because if you're going to wax your barrel, if you're going to have wax in your barrels, you might as well have it in glass. It's not going to do anything. You might as well use it for a doorstop or a boat anchor.
Yeah. Just on that, because you mentioned that and it got me thinking. So I remember Bill Lark told me a story once about one of his best barrels was an old dodgy barrel that leaked like a sieve, and it was a doorstop. And it turned out to make really cracking whiskey. But it got me thinking about Bill Lark, and you have known Bill for many, many years. I mean, Bill's the godfather of Australian whiskey in particular.
No doubt.
And the first time I ever saw blue ring barrels was down at Lark. So tell us a bit about your friendship with Bill and how far back it goes, and what's some of your experiences with Bill? Okay,
well, the first thing is all those guys down in Tassie, we love them all. The industry is bloody fabulous. And years ago, I was working in the Cooper shop there at Seppelsfield, and we were working 100 litres, and this old bloke rolls up on a motorbike, and he says, "G'day, I'm Bill Lark," and he come in with his sidekick, Mark Nicholson, on a BSA or something. And I remember taking the mickey out of both and saying, you want to get real motorbikes, you guys. And the friendship went on from there on, and they come into the Cooper shop and we talked wood, and then it developed from there.
So what happened? So did Bill said, I'll have a crack at some of your whiskey barrels. Were you making whiskey barrels at that point?
We had just started. And in its infancy, and we got into it. And Bill, he wanted a certain specification char, and I've got to tell you something about charring. Or do you want to talk about charring now, or talk about Bill later on? Or
no, good. Yeah, jump into char. Yeah,
charring. Okay, charring's very, very important. It's the single most important thing, believe it, on a barrel. And Bill wanted a relatively heavy char. Now here's the deal. So some of the barrels that we're getting from Seppelsfield, the big, chunky, heavy, heavy flavored barrels require a certain heat. Now, you don't get a heat gun. You just don't get a heat gun. If you're making a brand new barrel, mass-produced cooperages, they use heat guns because all the staves are the same as in the moisture content, right? So that's all computer driven. But we use that up there, which is good. And not every cask is the same. There's too much flog with all the heat gun business. So we listen to what the distillers tell us. In this case, Bill, and we developed a certain type of cask for him, and a little bit like when Max Schubert was doing his thing with Grange. He was overboard, and the company told him to stop. Now look at Grange. But getting back to Bill, so he was making a style for Tasmania, and the rest is history.
And now one of that's actually gone generational now. Chrissy Lark uses your barrels too.
Yeah. Well, we're passing on, and we went down there. I took good friends Hoffman's down to who works for me, and Michael and his wife, and we went down and had a good time in Tasmania. We loved it. Did a little bit of sailing on the harbour there, and loved it all. And
nice.
Learned about the industry. So I think it's great that everyone's whilst you're independent, yes, it's really important that you work together. Yeah,
no, exactly. And one of the reasons we're doing Shooting the Shit series is to have these sort of conversations so people can see that there are other people involved in what we do to put spirits in bottles, and those relationships are very, very important. It's not like we're just placing orders and we never meet the people. We have like you and I, we communicate every couple of days, shooting shit about various things.
Yeah.
As do others.
If people ring me up, anyone can ring me up, and if it's about, if I can hear the phone going, I'll answer it 90% of the time. If not, I'll get back to them. But I'm prepared to share our knowledge and help people out. It's most important. We're on the earth a short time. Let's make it a good time.
So, what do you think? We've had a question from Mike Leyland on Zoom, saying, "What do you think of?" I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Mizunara
Oak.
Yes.
Missouri.
No, Japanese oak.
Japanese oak. Japanese oak. Mizunara oak.
Yeah, it's good stuff if you can get hold of it. But it's like gold.
Right.
I'm lucky enough. My wife's brother lives in Tokyo, and he's got access to I've forgotten the distillery now, and we've got access in there. And if you get hold of all those quirky one-off oaks, then give it a go. But stay away from the Australian hardwoods. You're going to be disappointed.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Well, okay, question for you. We often hear about American oak, and we often hear about French oak and European oak.
Yeah.
What's the difference between French oak and European oak? Is there any actual difference, or is it one and the same?
Let me start off from a wine-making sense, and you can sort of lead into there if that's okay.
Yep.
So French oak tend to be more spicy. Okay, it's got a variance of a large range of spices. Okay,
right.
Years and years ago, it used to be very, very soft. It still is, but an American oak, if I flip the flip side, we go to American oak, it can be bloody hard, very tight grained, and more vanilla in characters.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you want to make with your whiskey, but we can manipulate that to a certain extent.
So from a cooperage standpoint, and handling French oak and handling American oak, do you treat the woods differently because of the tightness of the grain and that?
Yeah, we do. We're very, very French oak. It's difficult now. Let's be honest. A lot of French oak and American oak now coming into the country, fast grown. It's cut down and it's all machine made.
Yeah.
So if you had a barrel that was handcrafted years ago, and I've still got access to some of those beautiful old hogsheads and puncheons that were handmade. But you can get French oak as hard as American oak now.
Right. Okay. Okay. So it's changed. Yeah.
So if you've had a hard weekend, and on a Monday morning you can tell who in the cooper shop who's had a hard weekend, I can tell you. You give them a piece of hard American oak and short grain, and we play tricks on one another.
One of the questions that I've got is early in my journey on wood.
Yeah.
I had people telling me you can tell the difference easily, French oak versus American oak, just by looking at the wood. And I would be honest, I struggled with it for quite some time. I think now I can tell, just looking at the grain texture and that, but also the type of barrels is a bit of giveaway. What's your take on all that? Is there a clear-cut way you can go, yes, that's French oak, or yes, that's American oak?
Well, when we deal with so much, I got to tell you at the end of the day, I've really got to look twice, 3 times sometimes. Yeah. Because it's when these things are mass produced, the new barrels I'm talking about coming in, not my barrels, but the ones that come in from overseas. Yeah. And you can actually tell, but so much depends on environmental factors where that oak was originally grown. Yeah. The growth of that tree, if it's in the snow, has it been through hard times, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we can generally tell the difference between French and American.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Another question from Facebook's come in. Sorry, that I thought was
Go for it.
Why do the Irish stand the barrels up? Why do the Irish stand barrels up, whereas the rest of the world lay their barrels on their side?
Easy answer. It's all about storage. It's all about storage. In Australia, for example, we used to lay them down on stillage, and then you build a pyramid stack. Then it's all about economies of scale and handling. It's all about handling the barrels. So now you would put those barrels on barrel cradles and you handle them with a forklift. Over there, or even here in Australia, wine and whiskey, you'd buy a cheap pallet in comparison with a barrel cradle, and you stand it up on its end. Now, I'm going to come clean here. I'm not in favour of that at all.
From a bung standpoint, it must be pretty critical that you use bungs that don't pop out under pressure.
Well, I can understand it when you're paying for space. I understand it. I get it. I'm right across it. I personally don't like it because that at one end, even though you got the vapors and everything inside the barrel, that one end is going to be dry.
Yeah, you would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, on average, you guys help me out here, but I'm gonna shoot from the hip now. I think it's about, could I safely say, is it 3% angel share per barrel, even in the hogsheads? I don't know. It could be higher. I don't know.
It'd be higher. I'm about, on my hundreds anyway, about 7%.
Yeah, wow.
So it's pretty high. And I know someone up the road, distillery, they're about 9%.
Yeah, well, there you go. So
yeah,
it's all. I know it's all compromised. I get that.
Yeah, as I say to Scotsmen that come in the shed and ask questions, and we talk about angel share, and you tell them how much you're losing, and they go, "Oh, that would upset a Scotsman big time."
Yeah,
to lose that much. That's a leak.
They've got short arms and deep pockets. Those guys. I mean,
So, what do you think of? What do you think of the craft spirits movement in Australia? Looking at it from your perspective, do you see we're in a golden time? We're sort of coming to the end of the golden time. Do you see there's opportunities? You mentioned concerns of what happened in the wine industry.
Yeah,
what's your take on it?
Yeah. Guys, I think your quality, all of you guys collectively, all over Australia, your quality will win the day. And I talk, if I can relate to my own cooper shop, most people come into the cooper shop, they say, how many do you produce a day? What are your numbers? What do you produce? We don't worry about numbers. And I'll tell you why. If you make a quality product, the world will come to you. Right? The world will come to you. Now, what a situation to be in.
Right? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree.
And I'm once again, I'll relate it to the car industry. If I drive brand X, where they make thousands a year, do I want to produce thousands a year, or do I want to produce the pinnacle Aston Martin range?
Ah, there it
Now,
is. He said it.
Well, okay, yeah, sorry, but that's where we want to go. Now, the guys in the craft industry, you guys across Australia, even the bars, the hotels, the pubs, the clubs, you guys have got such. I mean this with most sincerity. You guys, what you have got, you guys don't stuff it up. Don't stuff it up.
We'll try not
No
to.
shortcuts. No, well, what will happen if someone comes in over the horizon, been in the game 5 minutes, and puts a product out that's inferior?
Yeah.
And I can tell you from the wine industry, or anywhere, anything that you manufacture, if you've got a customer that's been loyal and with you for years and years and wants to follow through for years to come, once you've lost that customer, forget it, they won't come back.
No. You build your brand loyalty with your quality.
And you build it, and like
and the way you interact.
Yeah, and how I built my cooperage, I've said to you just a minute ago, and it still stands true. I'm not interested in numbers, what we produce a day.
Yeah.
Because if I made, I'll just throw it out there for the hell of it. If I made 100 barrels a week, which I don't, but if we made 100 barrels a week, and 10 of those barrels go out and they're faulty, I said before, you're only as good as your last barrel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. No, it's quality. It's quality. One of the things in the space that I'm operating, craft distilling, is we're a lot of us are very collaborative. We work with each other. We share information. In the cooperage space, is that the same? Do you have that? You mentioned AP Johns before.
Yeah.
Is it like that sort of relationship with cooperages as well?
I've got that with Peter John. I've known the John family for years, and when I was at Penfolds, we bought all their AP John barrels.
Yeah,
they make a robust product. That family's been in the industry over 125 years. I think, to me, that's got to be respected. And I welcome new players to the industry, but what I'm carefully guarded about is someone who's been in the trade 5 minutes. My biggest thing is where are they going to be if something falls over?
Yeah. No, fair comment.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So we've got another Zoom question here for you guys, or for Andrew.
Yep.
Do you mix up your staves, i.e. bourbon, port, sherry?
Well, wholly and solely, it depends on what the customer wants. I mean, we would say to the customer, if I can use this, Crafty, I can say, well, Crafty's done a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's been successful, and I'll say to them, well, don't go down this road. And I'll give you an example. I wouldn't use American or French oak staves and then put Australian hardwood ends in, as an example. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
Known quantities all the time.
Yeah. And you can marry American oak and French oak comfortably in the barrel?
No problem at all. No problem at all. No problem at all. But you've got to look at the age of the wood.
Yeah. But then again, someone would say, well, why not just have an American oak barrel and a French oak barrel and just marry the product at the end? It'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And look, we've made barrels too where we've had equal amounts of French and American oak staves, and we've even had some German oak staves, which I won't use again, because German oak is so soft, it just causes you grief. It's messy. And it does leak, and it's a bugger of a wood. It's very soft.
I've never heard of German. Is it like Hungarian oak? Is it?
Yeah. It's very, 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 very soft.
Yeah, right.
Very soft, and even the bluntest of hand tools will just slice through it.
Right. Now, there's a question.
Yeah.
So, as a miller, brewer, distiller, sometimes we have to repair a barrel because barrels move.
Correct.
But we get a lot of storm fronts where we are rolling through off the plains, puts the barrels under pressure. So we've banged hoops on. I have taken headwoods out and things like that. But what basic toolkit, if a distiller came to you and said, mate, I need to have the tools so I can do some of my own repairs because I don't have a cooperage close by, which a lot of us don't. What would be the basic tools you would recommend to a distiller to get their hands on?
Good question. And Crafty, I know your cooperage skills now. So
I've banged my thumbs a few times.
I know. But you're not a member of the Cooperage Club unless you've taken a finger off or done something. So here's the in answer to your question. You need a good quality hammer and driver. You want a good hammer. You don't want some pissant thing that weighs half a. You want a man's hammer. Okay, you've seen those in the Cooper shop. Man's hammer and a proper driver.
Yeah,
that's number one. And also you want a chisel in your toolkit. You want some spigots in your toolkit, wooden spigots. And when you put those in, guys, don't get over happy with the hammer and bash the crap out of it. You're only going to make it worse. So, for example, if you get a wormhole or a bug or something, and you put a nail in there, just go gentle, and give it 5 minutes. The other thing is the old brown paper bag trick. Don't use white paper. Use brown paper. It's got the nice amount of cellulose in it. Roll it up as we demonstrated to Manly that time.
Yep.
And gently push it in the joints and go from there. But most of it hinges back to always have your barrels full if you can.
Mm. Yeah, right.
The worst thing for a barrel in Australian conditions at 40 degrees, for example, at 10% humidity, and we've had it lower than that here in South Australia, I can tell you. Howling bloody northerly wind, great fire weather, as you know, I'm in the country fire service here, great bloody fire weather, and it just drags the guts out of your timber, as in moisture.
Mm. No, like I've seen it firsthand. I picked up a little 10-litre barrel that was dry. Hadn't had any spirit in for a while, and it basically disintegrated in my hand. It just collapsed the staves, the hoops, and everything.
You raised a good point there. I want to say to everybody, if you got your wood, and you'll often hear people say, put it in a bucket of water or fill it with water. Don't do that immediately if it's real bad. You've got to tighten the hoops first. I've had so many people that have just filled the barrel up. Water's expensive. And ideally in any situation, one, you should never get there where it's that loose. But two, if you are, the best thing for your barrel, believe it or not, is very slow, gentle steam.
Right.
What that steam does is sterilize your barrel, number one. But number two, gentle steam, it just is so good on the pores of the timber. It just expands so quickly.
Mm.
Not all of you got steam, I realize that, but hot water or cold water. But you should never get that far.
We've got a couple of display barrels outside, purely just display barrels. And Todd and I, over January, intend to pop the hoops, pop out the headwood and play around with them. And play around with a bit of cooperage, low risk because they're empty barrels. But it'll be a bit of fun, won't it, Todd?
It's how you learn.
They're on the verge of collapsing, those barrels. So.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
But it's how you learn. And we, like I said, we're running a very successful, we call it Cooper for a day. We're pushing that out to 3 days now. You'll leave our Cooper shop with good knowledge, good basic knowledge. You won't be able to call yourself a Cooper, but it's our contribution to helping the industry. And I think it's necessary.
Yeah. Look, I think the next thing is once the borders are down, and people can move again properly, you need to get your ass on the road and get back up here, And
I want to come I want to come to Sydney, guys. I love it over there. I love the bloody Blue Mountains. Unfortunately, most of my time's been firefighting over there, and I just want to come over and get on the gas at Circular Quay and zip out the Manly and see you boys up in the Blue Mountains. And hell, life is short, guys. Come on.
He did it again. He mentioned gas, which is a relationship to a car. Can't help himself.
Well, but I'm willing to take any. If there's more questions there tonight, hit me up.
Any more questions, Todd or Luke?
Have a quick look.
Having a quick look. Typical Cooper pit head. I saw that comment.
We've managed to get through the questions. We've had quite a few good ones, which has been great.
Yeah. No, it's been an informative session.
Yeah.
How's our time?
We are 5 to 9.
5 to 9. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we might wrap it up then.
That's the hour. Just one other question as a budding distiller myself. When you've got those small barrels sitting there that I just haven't had time to fill,
Yeah.
What am I best to do with them? When you've got I've got two 5-litre American oak barrels that have had spirit in them before and also had a bit of red wine in them. What do you do with them in the meantime?
Can I be cocky for once in my life?
Once.
Get your bloody priorities right, and get your bloody barrels full. I'm not overstating that. Serious guys are serious, because would you give me $100 note to light the barbecue with?
Oh, look.
No, that's how I'm going to. How's that, Crafty? It's not a car this time.
No, not a car.
But
just waste your
but
money. Yeah.
I want to reiterate it, guys. Get your barrels full. Keep them full. Keep them full. Keep them full. Keep them full. And that's the way to go.
Just whatever you can do to keep it full.
I noticed there was a question there come up on the screen a minute ago. How do we char our barrels?
Yep.
Yeah, good question, actually. Yeah.
Okay, that come from my old mate there, Peter Gallotta.
G'day, Peter.
Hey, Pete. Look, there's various ways of charring the barrels. I'll tell you what, we use gas, and I'll tell you why we do. We've got really good control over gas. We can hit it hard. We can lock in the flavors. Most of you guys have been in the Cooper shop. We can give a good layer of char, depending on what you want, without destroying behind that layer of char the flavors of the original barrel. Now, super cask is done in that way, as you know, and it's all about having good, even control.
So, all right, I've got a question. So, toasting,
yeah,
in a general sense, versus char, what is the difference from a cooperage standpoint?
Very, very, very good question. So, all wine barrel, or most wine barrels, when they're bent, they're fired, and they're bent into position. Now, how you retain that shape, you take all the stress out of the bend of the cask, and you put it over a slow fire, maybe sometimes different cooperages, 15 to 20 minutes each end, with a slow, not over you don't have a bushfire in there, but you have a nice and hot. You use all the oak offcuts. And so with a wine barrel, you're toasting it. So you toast it like enough to open the pores of the wood up. Right. Now with wine, if you charred a wine barrel, you're actually destroyed everything that wine's going to get benefit from. So you've gone too far. You've gone too far. Spirit, on the other hand, if you didn't char your barrel, if you just put it in a barrel, you're going to end up with flavored God knows what. But it won't be whiskey. So you have to char a whiskey barrel. And I hear this all the time. Oh, it's char 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D. That's only a general rule of thumb. Okay. And the reason why we say that in our Cooper shop is because every cask is different. Yeah, every single cask, and we even with our charring now, we even go down to the temperature of the day. Okay.
Yeah.
So, a popular question that's coming up on both Zoom and Facebook, and I think you touched on it a bit before, is stopping leaking along stave joints or the ends of staves.
Yeah.
What's your hot tips for that?
Well, once again, if I owned a distillery, and tonight we're talking about whiskey barrels and spirit, if the cask is weeping, I wouldn't worry about it. That means that cask is working its guts out for you. If it's an actual leak, and I think that's what people are worried about, if it's a drip sort of scenario, what you do is on the end of the staves, where it's end grain, just go lightly with a little nail, for example, and just put a little wooden spigot in there, and don't bash the hell out of it, because what you'll do 90% of the time, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to open up. You're going to make it worse. On the staves, just get a chisel, a blunt chisel, and just, if it's about, let's say for example, it's 50 mil long where it's leaking. Two things you can do there: get some chalk and rub the chalk in nice and hard, not to fix the leak, but to really identify where that leak's coming from, because you can get tricked. You can get tricked. It can be up the other end of the stave it's actually leaking from, and it can be leaking along. So rub the chalk in, identify the area of concern, scrape it back, and roll up some brown paper as I showed everyone, and then just gently tap it in with a hammer and chisel. But whatever you do, don't bash the crap out of it.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some videos of winemakers repairing barrels, Coopers in wine, and you'll have a wine barrel on the side, and as they say on the videos, you've got to find where the actual leak is. It can be quite deceptive.
Yeah,
and I've had this. I've spent time thinking I know where the leak is, and it's not. And when you identify it, then you can actually do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. I can remember I had a Grange barrel. Grange is worth a lot of money, as you guys know. Yeah. And I was tasked to fixing it, find the leak. And it took me 2 hours to find the leak. And would you believe it was leaking under the hoop?
Under the hoop. Oh, wow.
Under the hoop. And that was a real challenge to fix, I can tell you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, right. A few more questions by the looks of it.
I've got one here. Is it Justin Mock?
Justin. Yeah. G'day, Justin. Woodwater.
Apologies, I'm still working out Zoom. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, sorry, it is. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey, Justin.
My question was just about most unusual wood types, or if there's anything that's been other than a traditional, American or Hungarian or French oak that you've actually had to cooper into a cask for someone before.
Yeah, we talked about it before, Justin.
Sorry.
No, but it's okay. I'll quickly recap it. Generally, stay away from Australian hardwoods.
Yep.
Okay? They're going to give you grief, and it's going to be so unpalatable, and I'll challenge anyone on that. It's going to be so unpalatable, you wouldn't use it for rocket fuel.
Beautiful.
Has there been a wood that surprised you, where you thought, nah, this is not going to work, and then it actually did?
Oh, believe it or not, I've had some plain old simple French oak, some beautiful 100-year-old, and we verified it 100-year-old French oak cask out of where I am at Seppelsfield, and we just shook our head in disbelief, and we thought, wow, this is. In fact, we keep the shavings. And I'll tell you something, guys, that you want to think of as whiskey producers in Australia, high-end whiskey producers. Some of you have met Owen Andrews, the chef at Seppelsfield. I save up most of those 100-year-old shavings for him. And you know where the wine industry has a pairing with food and wine? And I think you've got a wonderful opportunity, all you guys across Australia. And I know you're probably doing it already, but I'll just say it, to match your whiskies with certain restaurants and food. I think that's an absolute way to go. If you can get into high-end restaurants, get your whiskies there in some fancy restaurants in Sydney or wherever you're from, talk to the chef, get really involved. That's the way to go. That's how I see it.
Yeah, no, there's a few doing that, and you're right. There's a real relationship between food and whiskey. And when you get the matchings right, it can be spectacular. I mean, just come back to basics: oysters and peated whiskey. It's a match made in heaven. It really is, in my opinion.
Well, tried that. I'm going to have to try that now.
Oh, try that. And
so,
what's the name? Smitty from Tin Shed Distillery. It's quite funny when he does whiskey shows. The first thing he does, he doesn't put his whiskey out, he puts his chocolate out. He puts his chocolate out, and then he puts his whiskey out. And whiskey and chocolate, he's cheating. He's cheating, I tell you.
So another question coming from Facebook. How thin do you go with staves? How thin do you go with staves?
Good question.
Yeah, and once again, a really good question. And we reject anything under. We wouldn't go anything under 25 mil. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And here's something else to consider.
What's the risk there?
Yeah, sorry, go again.
What's the risk there going under 25 mil?
Well, believe it or not, you're going to have maturation that's too quick. I know that sounds funny, but you're going to have maturation that's too quick. I wouldn't go under anything, and the integrity of the cask is compromised.
Yeah,
and particularly if you're standing, if you're a distillery that's standing them up on end on pallets, you do the mathematics. Now you guys have to help me here with the maths, but I think years ago, if you had 3 hogsheads full of wine, including the weight of the barrel. I could be wrong. Nearly a ton of weight. So if you've got that poor bugger on the bottom pile, he's supporting that. He's supporting his mates. There's risk.
Yeah.
But from a whiskey performance point of view, I wouldn't go under anything under 25 mil. In fact, which leads me into my next thing I'm going to talk about: shaving of casks.
Yeah. Good point. We haven't covered that.
Okay. Now here's the deal. You hear of distilleries. Look, we've got this cask in, beautiful thick staves, 32 mil, and we got them shaved out, and we got them retoasted.
STR, I think they call it.
Yep. Why would you strip out all that beautiful flavour that nature's already put there for you? Stupid. You're actually taking away, unless the cask has got other problems. Yeah, okay, you might shave it. We haven't shaved a barrel for whiskey for many, many years, because we've worked around it, how we can retain those beautiful flavours with a nice char level.
I must say, it's something I've thought about, the whole STR concept of shave, toast, and char. And from what you said, if you're shaving off that layer of flavour, you're toasting the underlying. It's going to be a lighter influence on the overall whiskey, you would think. So I guess if you're chasing a lighter style, that would make sense. But if you're after a more meaty whiskey, it doesn't make sense at all.
Well, I'm biased. I'm biased here. I mean, it's like me cooking a chop on a barbie. I want a chop that I can lift on a bloody steak with a forklift onto the barbecue.
Forklift's like a car.
But big grunty bloody tomahawk, and big gutsy whiskies. I'm the same with my wine. I like to drink big heavy wines. I mean, everyone to their own, for sure. But getting back to shaving the cask, I have a belief. Why shave out? Why take out all that flavour? In fact, I'm doing a lot of work, still doing a lot of work with a very famous distillery overseas. Had it not been for COVID, I would have been there now. And what we're doing is quite amazing. It's we compare notes and think, bloody hell, they're pretty much doing what we're doing, but in a much bigger scale.
Cool, very cool. Yeah. All right. Any other questions there, guys?
Well, I guess, Andrew, if you had a new distiller out there, came to you and asked, what size barrel would you recommend they started with? Okay.
In Australia, I would say you start with a 100-litre barrel.
Yep.
And then we do what we do in our Cooper shop. We have a full wood program for startups and even the big distilleries. Now, let me give you an indication. We say start off 100-litre, where you're from, for example, and most of the places are coastal. 100 litres is a good size, so you can get their head around what they're doing, effects of maturation. And then if they want to be long-term, because as you know, it's a long-term game. This whiskey industry is a long-term game, and you can burn money like it's going out of fashion. And I'm not into burning anyone else's money, I can tell you that. So I advise people, we'll start up an oak program for you. Start off at 100-litre. You get rolling at 100-litre, and then introduce. Don't go to 220 litres because they're being phased out in Australia, mostly. And then you go to a 300-litre. So a 300-litre hogshead. So you bring the two together. You still have to have your rules and regulations how it's all matured, but when you want volume, you go into your 300 litres.
So 100-litre. Let's just take it as an example. 100-litre matures in 3 to 4 years typically. So what did you say the hogs were? 300 litres?
300 litres.
So you'd be up like a 6 to 8 year old whiskey.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So what I'm saying is get the 100 litres going, get them on the road, so to speak, but bring your 300s forward. So in other words, don't manufacture, and I'll pull a figure out the sky here. Don't manufacture 6 years just using 100-litre barrels. So start off with your 100 litres. By the second or third year, introduce some 300s, right?
Yep.
And so eventually you're going to, if you look at a graph, it's going to be a graph like that. It's going to be nice and steady. I'm always concerned, as I said to you before, if anyone says to me, oh, I've got massive growth, massive blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, give us a little your graph or your growth rate. If it goes straight up like a rocket, guess what? It can only go one way.
Mm.
And it looks pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Slow, steady growth.
Slow, steady growth. Yeah. Todd, we've got to start getting into 300s, mate. So we need a bigger shed.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I can only say, I always say this, Australia's a big place, room for expansion.
Yes. All right. Okay. Any questions, or are we?
There's a lot of debate about whether we should be adding other things such as chocolate to the barrels when we're aging whiskey. So,
Oh, well, it's, yeah, in Australia, with the restrictions that we work with, which are quite loose, there's a lot of different things we can do. I mean, we've done, personally, Todd and I have done honey in a barrel, which is now, how old's that barrel, Todd? It's a year and a bit.
yeah, it's about 18 months now.
18 months. And it's definitely had an impact, a positive impact on the flavor profile. So, yeah, try things. This is the great thing about our industry.
Another question from Facebook there, from David and Carolyn Taylor. What made you become a Cooper, Andrew?
I think the question was, what made me become a Cooper?
Yeah. What made you become a Cooper?
Oh,
His dad.
Well, Dad, we took our grapes into Penfolds in the old truck, and I just wanted to be a carpenter or something to do with wood, and I annoyed the old Cooper there, and rest is history of 5-year apprenticeship, and I had Penfolds looked after me, and I've still got some very close connections there, and I want to make one thing clear. Like I said earlier on, I've been in trade now for 47, 48 years, and I've got Rodney 52 years. We're only talking the other day, and I think if you're Cooper or anything in life, if you think you know it all, you know stuff all, because you're learning something every day. I think that attitude's, you got to learn something new every day.
So what's changed in the cooperage industry for you during your tenure? How has it evolved, and how have times changed for you?
Okay, well, a couple of interesting things there. There's been machinery introduced for barrel making, which is much more efficient, faster, much more efficient. But of course, with more machinery, what happens, it goes from one machine to the next, not in my workshop, but in the big cooperages. And virtually you hardly touch it now, except when you're loading the machine and going to the next process. One of the concerning things, and we've started up, this is why we started up Cooper for a day and invite everyone to come to Seppelsfield, is the lack of apprentices. And guys like Peter Gallotta in the Cooper shop the other day using a brace and bit, but we'll put him on the hand tools. But seriously, guys, is the actual accredited Coopers passing on their skills. Yeah. Now, you can read all the books you like. You can go to old mate Dr. Google, and you can do that. I'm not against people having a go, but unless you've got a proper accredited school, or which we're working on now to help the industry, wine and whiskey industry, costs of coopering are going to go sky high.
Is there a danger that coopering is becoming a lost art, or? No.
We put things in place 5 years ago to cut that off. We're going to make sure it survives. And we're working with a number of other places to reintroduce programs. We're cutting right through red tape. Make no mistake, we're going to cut right through red tape. If we have a wall in front of us, we're going to push it over, because it's too important. If young guys or girls want to give it a go, they should have every equal opportunity as what I did to give it a go.
How are you seeing the split, just talking about guys and girls, how are you seeing the split of gender adoption of becoming a Cooper?
Oh, it's a bloody tough gig. I mean, I won't pull any punches. Coopering is a tough gig. If you're doing it the hand way like we are, you have your testy days.
Are there more girls entering into girls?
No.
Picture you're finding, or
Well, some are inquiring. There's no doubt about that. But it's just got to be. It's just one of those. Coopering is traditionally hard, heavy. It's a hard, heavy slog.
It's a hot, physical, workplace, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you've been there, Crafty, when we're doing our special firing of barrels, special. You go from 0 to bloody 900 degrees plus, or 0 to 700. Anyone wants to come and join us and get a taste of it, we welcome it. And it's a learning experience. We play with fire every day. By the end of the day, we're sick of bloody fire.
I don't know. You go home and barbecue a steak then, don't you?
Well, I did tonight, actually. I did tonight, and even I bloody burned that. But anyway. How's that for a bloody sausage there? I'd even bloody charred that. There you go.
That's a heavy char, that one.
That's exactly right.
Do you have a smoker? You must have some amazing woods and amazing shavings that you can whack in your smoker and do something amazing.
We do, and I tell you what, I give it to Chef Owen Andrews, the chef here across from where I am. That guy, what he does, and even when years ago, we kept the shavings when I made that Prince Philip barrel, that oval. We made him an oval, and we sent that, and that's now full of Lefroy over there, and the good mother country as they call it. We kept the shavings from that, so anything unique, we keep it, we box it up, and I got to tell you what it does to food. And now I'm biased, but what it does to food and the flavour of food is spectacular.
So those special projects that you get, have you received bottles from those projects that you keep in high regard, and that you look at that on the shelf and you're quite proud of? I created the barrel, made that.
Yeah.
I made that possible.
Yeah, I do, but I'm also very, very conscious, and I don't take this lightly. I hold my guys that help me in my cooper shop. I might own the business and run it, but I treat all of my guys with the same respect. They all have equal input. Now, most of you guys have been to my cooper shop, and it's a happy cooper shop, and there's a couple there that we did with Bill Lark years ago. I think about 80 litres were made, no more than 80 litres, and that was something special. And that was called the Four Corners. And that involved myself, Warren Randall, Bill Lark, and Ross Dinsmore in those days. So that's a very special thing. I love Tasmania, I love Sydney, I love Australia. That's it.
Awesome, Andrew. All right, guys. Well, I think we need to wrap it up now. So, Andrew, mate, thank you for coming on and telling us what goes on in the cooperage.
Okay, I want to say thank you, guys, and I'll close off now, but I think it's very important that maintain quality. Don't take the I always say take the short, hard, or the long, hard road, and it takes extra. Take the long, hard road, because when victory comes, and it does, if you do the right thing, when victory comes, it's well worth celebrating. We're here to help each other. Just remember it. Thanks for having me.
Andrew Young, the philosopher and the man with wood.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks. See ya.
Thanks.
All righty. All right, guys. Well, that's it for another one. We're finishing up. So the next one will be in 2 weeks, and we are interviewing someone pretty special. It's Ned, head distiller from Waterford Distillery in Ireland, which is going to be a real treat. Waterford is an exciting distillery on the world stage, doing some amazing things with grain and processes. So looking forward to having a chat, shooting the shit with Ned, and details to follow on it. Meanwhile, thanks all. Crafty out.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy your night.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.